Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to Coruscant Radio Underground. As always, I'm Andrew, and I've got an awesome panel joining me tonight to talk a little Book of Boba Fett. Kelly is joining us tonight. Is this your first time joining us?
It is my first time joining you.
Awesome.
Thank
We've got another first timer on the show. We've got Blake from Dork Wars podcast.
Awesome. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And DJ, who has been with us a couple of times, I believe, but
Man, I'm the grizzled old vet.
always good to have you here. So, so we missed a couple of episodes getting to sit and talk about episodes 2 and 3. And I'm really, other than Kelly, I was on Rose's show on the Scuttlebutt podcast with Kelly last week.
Yes.
So we have talked a little bit about it, but specifically with DJ and Blake, I haven't really gotten a lot of y'all's take on the show up to 1 through 3. How did y'all feel about the show up to this point?
Go ahead, Blake.
So I've enjoyed the show thoroughly this far. Episode 1, gave us some good setup. I know a lot of people complained that it was short and that not a lot happened, but it was a good setup. The second episode was phenomenal. That third episode was not quite as good for me, but this fourth episode seems to get things ramped back up.
Yeah, what about you, DJ?
Oh man, I've actually been fairly critical of the whole series. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's the flashbacks. They're like trying to tell two stories at once,
Which is a fairly common trope these days.
Yeah,
maybe an overdone trope.
It just seems like that they're concentrating so much on the back story on some episodes, and it's great. But when they show what's in the present, it just kind of falls flat. And then there's others that, it shows, what's going on presently, and it's great. But then they throw in a flashback, and it's like, I wish they wouldn't have done that. So I haven't gotten an even episode yet. There's nothing that's really jiving with me. I'm enjoying it as a Star Wars fan, but I'm just not. It's not meshing yet. I'm hoping the last 3 will really pull it together, but we'll see.
Okay. I'm still really enjoying the show. Of course, I've had some gripes about it, but
of course,
I think that my biggest thing with it, and I stand by, this episode really hammered this home for me. The first episode, maybe the first 2, should have been the flashback stuff. There was no reason for the back and forth, since it's apparently not running through the whole series. Like, this one brought us up to date. We should be done with flashbacks. Yeah. I just think that it would have been less distracting to have told that story, because I love that story. In fact, so far the flashbacks are the meat of this story. I just wish they would have told those flashbacks, maybe even fleshed them out a little more, and then picked up from there. Maybe like middle of episode 2, we pick up with the present and move forward. But I do really like the flashbacks. The only thing that I don't think the flashbacks did a good job of conveying, and because up until this episode, I was constantly questioning, how long was he with the Tuskens? How long was he in the pit?
Yeah.
Well, now we know he was with the Tuskens for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Which was always the suspicion, but it doesn't, like, the flashbacks don't do anything to make you feel like he spent that kind of time with them.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Yeah. It really seems that from the flashbacks, it looked to me maybe a couple months, at most, just the way they did the flashbacks, that it just kind of seemed he was a prisoner. He was then friends with them, and then they died, but
right. Yeah, they rushed it. It's like, how did the time work? Like, how much time was he there as a prisoner? Like, how long was he there before he ingratiated himself to the chief? How long was he there, before he becomes a member of the tribe? And how long was he an actual full-fledged member of the tribe? Like, where did the bulk of that time fall?
Right.
And I'm really assuming that he spent the bulk of his time as a member of the tribe, and that's why it means so much to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Or maybe even if they would have the first 2 episodes, maybe the first 3 episodes, just be all flashback.
Yeah.
You start off the series here. He comes out of the Sarlacc pit, and then you start the story, and then in the middle of number 3 or even number 4, the way that we got it, where you get a more present day to what's going on. They've already
Right.
shown some imagery of what's happened. The trailers and everything before, some of the
Right.
art. Him showing, being on the throne. It's just they could have told a full story from here. Here's where he escaped. He was there for a while. Now that they start, you start pulling in the musical cues, the the other relationships that he had, and then you start with 3.5 and you finish out the series and you go from there.
Yeah. No, I think at this point, that's my one complaint about the show is that I think it should have just been told in a linear story.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But I've had issues with the I still I'm having trouble getting my mind around the Mod Squad aspect of it. But it's it's like some of it works, but in some of it just seems a little off, and I can't quite put my finger on what doesn't feel right about it.
It's really cartoony.
It is a little cartoony. It's but I did like when we see them in this episode. Nothing was as I didn't have the issues with we still see some of the scooters there, their bikes and those things, and they bothered me less in this episode, either because one, it just wasn't jarring like it was in the first time we saw them, or because it might just be the scenes in episode 3 that just feel off and not even the bikes themselves. But there are some very memeable moments in episode 3.
Yeah.
But overall, like I said, I'm liking it. And for me, this episode is the episode that really started to gel everything together. And the thing is, you look at it and you go, and I heard Ro ask this question earlier in their show, is episode 4 too late for it to start taking off? And actually what I would say to that is, I think that this episode, because of the way it wraps the flashback part of the story, I think vastly improves the first 3 episodes. Like, things that we didn't necessarily understand about Boba's motives are now clear.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't think it's too late. I think that if this would have been a 6-episode show, then I think they would have went over. But with this being the middle episode, you have 3, 3 to begin with, 3 to bookend, and then this is the hinge pin in the middle that marries the 2. I really think that it works, and it makes makes the first 3 a little more palatable.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
That's the thing for me is I really like the story they're telling. To me, the story overall is really well done. I feel there's some visual aspect to it that have been off at times. And I feel like there are little hits and misses with where Fennec, one time Fennec seems to play one side of an issue, and then later she kind of plays the other side of the issue.
Yeah.
In one moment she wants to be the aggressor, in the next moment she's saying, hold on, let's not do that right now. And and also I know there were some things where Tamara Morrison has said, he constantly thought while they were making this that Boba was talking too much, and so he kept pushing for some of his lines to be given to Fennec. And I just wonder if they did that at some point and later went, we should not have given Fennec that line.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean,
yeah. Man, Fennec is an interesting character in this whole situation, because up to this point, she's been more of badly mispronounce this word, but Daimyo, She's been more of the dynamo of this and trying to keep, Boba, engaged and, hey, come on, let's go take care of business. And, she's and well deserved. She's an amazing character.
Yeah. They kind of explained that. They kind of explained that in the flashback. After Boba took her to, found her, rescued her, and they started becoming friends. When he asked her to be with him to start this new head, he said, I need brains as well as brawn, and you're both. Yeah. So, we know from that point on that he always kind of figured that not only is she going to be, the queen assassin, but she's also going to be the brains of the operation, help him out and steer him where he's going to go.
Yeah, and I think Fennec was always built up to be our mirror for Boba Fett. I think that's the reason this character exists. I mean, even in the only episode that we had her in The Mandalorian, it was all to put her in this one, right? And she is everything that he was before this life-changing 5 years that he has spent in the desert.
Yeah.
Well, you can see that in that first episode. She's like, well, why don't you let them bring you in on a litter? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Like, why don't you rule more like Jabba would have? And he kind of pulls back. It's like, no, we're not going to do things that way. And I really like that. I like that dynamic between them, like you're talking about. It's like she's a mirror for Boba Fett. So that's awesome.
So what did y'all think as we wrap this, since we spent the first half of this episode wrapping up the flashbacks, what did y'all think about the portion of flashbacks in this story? In this episode?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that as soon as I was done with this episode, I went back to season 1, episode 5 of The Mandalorian and watched that. And then I went and rewatched Boba Fett again. So it matches up great. And I never saw it coming. So I loved it.
I really like the action. I like seeing how Fennec became Boba's right-hand woman. I like seeing that stuff. I think the biggest problem for me with the flashbacks, though, is there was nothing of consequence. Like, we knew the outcome of almost every single thing that happened, which is fine. I understand the need for setup, but I kind of wish they would have splashed that in over the last few episodes instead of like, well, here's a bunch of stuff that we already know the end to. Because we knew we knew Boba Fett's armor wasn't in the Sarlacc pit. We knew Fennec survived. We knew he got his ship back.
Right. I guess the upside to this scene of, going to the palace to get the ship is that we got what so far is probably the best action sequence in this show. Ming-Na really got her chance to show off.
Yeah, definitely.
In that scene. And, that's why you bring her on in the first place, is because of what she can do in an action sequence. DJ, what did you think about this last section of flashbacks?
It almost didn't even seem like it was a flashback.
The tone was different.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was I don't know if it's just because it was more present day and you kind of knew some of the outlying things that was going around in the galaxy up to this point. But it really didn't feel, it had a completely different tone than the first 3 episode flashbacks. And I liked it better this way. And if they do have more flashbacks, I hope they keep this tone going forward, which I don't think that they're going to anymore. I think that we're done with the flashback sequences, but I was very critical to start with, and they got a little better, and then ups and downs. But this last one was amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot I really appreciate about this flashback. One is the sound design on the scene that Kelly was talking about with the Boba Fett scene, because if you go back and watch it, the sound design, because now we know that they 100% telegraphed that was Boba Fett in that scene.
Right?
in The Mandalorian because they had the spurs, the sound of the armor. It's
Mhm.
not in this one. They took that out. I don't know if y'all caught that. They
Yeah.
took those sounds out.
Yep.
So all they were doing in The Mandalorian was saying, yeah, you know who this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we all drew our conclusions back then, but never did I see it coming. And I saw those, I don't know, flare blinders, the flash, the two flashes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this. And it was wonderful. It was awesome. And then I like how they continued that to where, you know, we were all like, how did, you know, Fennec survive? You know, because we all saw her get shot. And then I love how Boba took her to, I don't know, the mod crew. Mod shop. Yeah. And I kind of like that. Oh, and going back to before, I really like the mod guys because if you think about it, why should Star Wars be different than anywhere else? Because you always have these, you know, teenagers, 20 somethings, they're all, you know, tattooing or body modifications or piercings, dyeing their hair. And why should tattooing be any different from that age group?
Well,
so I really like it.
Despite the fact of I've not liked the way some of it has looked, the mod parlor and the mod culture is actually a really interesting concept in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
You know, especially on a place like Tatooine, right? Where we've had such hatred for droids. And it's not just Tatooine. We've got a galaxy that still has a hatred of droids because of a war 30 years before.
Yeah.
And so, but now we're in this post-Empire world, and culture is coming back. It might not look the same, but we're seeing an unsuppressed culture out from under the thumb of the Empire, and I do find all that really, really intriguing.
And I don't know how big into like the whole rock scene, you know, shock, anything. You guys were back in the 80s and the 90s, but the head guy who was doing the modifications, he's actually the bass player in a group called Suicidal Tendencies. I don't know if you guys heard of them or okay. TJ, I know you had to have. But I thought that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool nod.
They were interesting. When I first saw them in that episode, I guess was it 2 or 3 that they first showed up, and my first thought was, man, they look cartoonish. It reminded me so much of like Back to the Future Part 2, and you know they had all these crazy little things going, and I'm like, what in the world? This just doesn't. If you were to see it, I would expect almost like a Cyborg from DC, you know, a darker, grittier kind of thing going on. And but yeah, it was really pop culture ish to me. But you know, it kind of grew on me.
Yeah.
Like I said, the concept is interesting. I mean, we do have a history in Star Wars of people doing modifications. I mean, we go back to Lobot in Empire Strikes Back. We go back even in kind of this change of perception of being part machine. You know, we go back to what Obi-Wan tells Luke about Vader, that he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil.
Yeah.
And so this perception of someone who is part machine, who's modified their body to be part machine. So I do think that there's some really, really interesting subplot with that, but I don't know. Like I said, there's something that's still just a little off visually about it for me, and it's but I mean that's the sort of thing they'll sort that out. Like it's a new idea, and you know.
I know. First time I saw it, I was like, Voltron.
You just missing the black scooter, and we could have formed Voltron.
Well, that was Boba. He was dressed in black.
On our
show. I enjoyed it though. I mean, I really get into this stuff. I need things to hit me out of left field to say, oh, we've got new stuff, because I have all these crazy headcanons going on in my head constantly on what can happen next and who are we going to see. And then we get the mod gang, and it was like, oh, I never saw that coming. So I kind of appreciate things like that.
The other thing that I want to mention that I really appreciated about the flashbacks, because it reaches back to the roots of what Star Wars is at its core with its design, is the bantha, the puppet. That thing is absolutely amazing. I think they said it takes 4 people to operate it. It's, I mean, maybe one of the most complex puppets they've done outside of Grogu at this point.
Yeah, and it's so lifelike. I think they did a really good job of bringing it to life, and having Boba attached to the bantha is a pretty cool thing, because we've seen that last episode he's the Rancor imprints on him, and they start going back and forth. He's petting it, like,
you're so cool. Boy, you're a good boy.
But he has this with this bantha as well. Like, even to the point where he leave the bantha and he's like, "Go have a good life. Go make bantha babies. You do you." And I think it's really interesting to see.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, the practical effects just still astound me, and even when I was from when I was a kid till now, the Rancor was a practical effect in this one. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, thank God it's not CGI. It's I almost wish that the huts were not CGI, but to carry around that much weight on a platform would have just been too much for any man to carry.
Right. Now, I do think the one thing they did really well with the huts, though, despite making them digital, they made them appear to have weight.
Yes.
They really did a great job with telegraphing that these things are incredibly heavy. With the people struggling to hold them up, the bowing of the platform itself.
Yeah.
So even though they went digital, I love that they made it feel like it had weight, because sometimes you get digital stuff and it doesn't, you can't buy it as real because it doesn't appear to have weight.
It's just there.
Yeah.
They're even talking about Black Kristanen, and that was I loved seeing him show up. Such a big, although I think they did bobble the backstory a little bit. Because Boba and him knew each other before this time. And, it kind of seemed like, it's like, hey, take it from, an ex-bounty hunter. He's like, dude, he knows who you are. I mean, come on. Right. But just practical effect, just seeing another Wookiee out there and have it be that Wookiee was just absolutely amazing.
And it looks so good. Like we've done other Wookiees before. And this is probably one of the best. I mean, there were some pretty good looking Wookiees in in the prequels. The ones we saw but I think next to Chewbacca, I think this is the best physical representation of a Wookiee we've done.
Yeah.
Just all the details on him. I really got to notice in my third watch all the details on him, like even down to like the silver rings on his little black dreads. Like he's amazing. He is magnificent.
Yeah, they've really done an outstanding job with a lot of that stuff in this show, which is it's what you expect from the people at Lucasfilm. That's what they built their. That's the backbone of that company, is the ability to build that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They're definitely on the cutting edge.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple of last things about the flashback, and then we'll really move forward from there. One, Fennec calls into question the fact, and we had already kind of done this last week when we talked, but Fennec really calls into question the Nikto's being the ones that killed the Tuskens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to hear everybody's theory on that, like on who killed the Tuskens.
The Pikes.
I think it
Yeah.
might have been the Pikes, or it could be a whole nother syndicate that we never saw it coming, because we're expecting it to be the Pikes. Like, what if it's Crimson Dawn? Like, what if they just like give us another kapow?
That'd be wild.
That'd be so cool.
But yeah, she calls into question that, the biker gang, no way they could take out a group of Tuskens. They're too skilled. And my first thought, of course, is the Pikes. But I began to think about this, and why would the Pikes want the Tuskens dead? It really hadn't added up. They were going to battle it out with the biker gang to see who paid more. So I really don't know. Maybe the Pikes had a hand in it, but I definitely don't think it was the biker gang, just because of that dialogue. It's got to be something bigger.
Right.
One of my running theories, and this is probably like a far reach out there, but I think by the end of this, we're going to find out that the Pikes are not like a physical alien race. Like, they don't get down and just go to war. Like, they'll shoot people and stuff like that. But I feel like that they've hired like a group of bounty hunters to just get the job done, because they have all the money, right? They're rich, filthy rich. They can buy all the muscle. And I think that's why we get the stuff at the end with Boba and Fennec about buying muscle and brains and all that. So I think there's a group of bounty hunters out there. I don't know if they had their hand in this, but that's kind of my running theory.
DJ, do you have any other thoughts about that?
Well, that's it. It has crossed my mind. Crimson Dawn, definitely. I don't think it's. I don't think so. I think that's a little bit far-reaching. I can't see them bringing in that without a Solo 2, or because the last time that we saw them is it's been a while.
Right.
They have other things that they're attending to. So I really do think it was the Pikes. I think that they were just, it's like, hey, we already got the money from these guys. If why?
But what if this, DJ? Like, what if this? Like, you said you can't imagine Crimson Dawn, but we never imagined Book of Boba Fett until the very last episode of The Mandalorian, where it said the Book of Boba Fett coming in December of 2021. What if, like, they show Kira in the final episode, and then they say Solo 2 coming in 2023? Like, they could totally.
There's always been a lot of speculation that if Solo 2 were to happen in any form, that it could be as a show rather than a movie.
Yeah.
Now I'm just gonna say, I don't know exactly. I do think the Pikes are fully responsible for the death of the Tuskens. I think they're eliminating a problem. I think they've got two crews out there that are vying for power and wanting both of them wanting protection paid to them. They eliminated one probably with hopes that he would eliminate the other.
Yeah.
And then he's alone and has no power to, but the theme song, the Mandalorian or the Boba Fett theme, as the version that plays at the end of the episodes, the Crimson Dawn theme is 100% interwoven into the theme.
I haven't thought about that.
I didn't notice that at all.
It's there.
Awesome.
It plays towards the end of the Book of Boba Fett theme. The Crimson Dawn theme from Solo is actually interwoven into the music.
Wow. I didn't even pick up on that.
And I honestly think we don't know 5 years after. I mean, we're way after we have anything dealing in the criminal underworld in canon. Right. So I actually think the Pikes are under the rule of Crimson Dawn at this point. The logo, the emblem that the Pikes are wearing at this point is not the emblem that we saw them wearing the last time we saw them in either the animated series or in Solo.
It's true. That part's true. I did pick up on that.
I mean, anytime that we might get the possibility of seeing Kira, I'm all for.
Oh yeah.
It's,
right.
Such a great character.
I mean, I think she could hold her own show. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I don't even think she needs Han Solo. That's just me.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if they're setting up the underworld and they're going to have her still running Crimson Dawn, then we really don't have to have Han Solo involved to bring her back.
Yeah.
So I do think that in the conversation in the flashback with Fennec, I think that Boba Fett gives us what is ultimately going to be the overarching theme of this entire show, which is you can only get so far without a tribe.
Yes.
I do think 100%, and I think this next episode, based on the end, I think that's where this is leading. And I'll get into that more towards the end of the episode. But I think that when we look back on this at the end of 7 episodes, I think that's the theme of this show.
Well, you're right, because I mean, look what he's done so far. He's got Fennec. He's recruited the Mighty Morphin robot kids. He's got Black Chrysanthemum. He's got the Rancor, Danny Trejo. He doesn't have a name. I feel like a lot of people don't have a name for some
Rancor Wrangler.
Yeah, but he's got Danny Trejo. I mean, who else does he need, really? He's building a tribe. Like, that's what he's doing. And even later on this episode, he's still kind of trying to get more people in that tribe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's still interesting because his motives right now are to build a tribe. It's not to go out there and be this big criminal empire.
That's right.
So what are they at the end of this series? I mean, they're not, it's, I guess that's still going to be open for interpretation, but they're not necessarily setting up to be a criminal empire.
Right.
It's more like a family because even in his flashbacks, you had we all know the Boba and Jango, we all know what happened there, right. And then the Tuskens, and they were all taken from him. Even when it came to his time with Jabba's barge, and he was like part of that little network there, and then they were all destroyed. So, every place that he's ever belonged has been ripped away from him. And I think it all boils down to he just wants a family.
Yeah.
And then where does Omega fit into all this?
So I think that they're showing, there has to be more to the flashback on Kamino, even though we didn't go back there this week.
I think so too.
I do think that there's something more there. And I think that I think we're going to get another flashback at the end here. For whatever reason, we're getting another flashback. We're going to get the rest of that scene.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be remembering he has a sister.
I think so too. But is that going to be like chapter 2 or not chapter 2, book 2 of the Book of Boba Fett? Or will that be in the Bad Batch? Or will that be in Ahsoka?
And that's the thing that they're building. Favreau and Filoni are building a very interwoven world, which is great. So
I love it.
Really, I mean, right now we don't have any indication that this is not a one-off series. And in fact, that is the indication that we have right now that that's exactly what this is. But I do think that at the end of this, we set Boba Fett up to a point where he can literally show up anywhere.
Yeah. Will it go back to the Mandalorian? Because now that we're halfway through this season, they're really making it sound like one of the spokes of the Mandalorian. This is just one of the books,
Right.
So many possibilities.
There's one more line in the flashback I wanted to ask y'all about, because I'm curious right now if it's a throwaway line, if it's something that got cut out of the flashbacks, because I kind of got the feeling maybe they cut some of that out with the way we rushed through the last little bit of it to catching us up to the present. But Boba says, when he's talking about what he's going to do, he says, "I'm going to go kill that bloated pig who double crossed me," talking about Bib Fortuna.
Mm.
So, what context are we missing? What did Bib Fortuna do?
Huh.
I don't know.
I've been trying to figure that one out. He stole a ship, so there's that.
I'm assuming that he went and asked for his ship back
Yeah.
and was turned away.
Yeah,
But-
either that or we're told, oh yeah, sure, you can go get your ship, and and then he goes to get his ship, and then is told, yeah, you can have your ship for an extra, 200 credits or something like that, and changes the deal. Or
Well,
if you work for me for 20 years or so, then I'll allow you to have your ship. So something.
I wish they would have shown that though. That seems like something kind of big for them not to at least give like a 2-minute scene to, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that I was kind of curious about, and so I did a little research. There's this is about 9 years after Return of the Jedi,
Right.
And between this and the Force
do we
Awakens,
think we're that far forward?
No, we should be about 5 because this takes place around the same time as The Mandalorian.
well, some of the flashback, in the the Mandalorian is around 9, isn't it?
I think it's
I
5.
thought it was 9, but then it was 5. So
Okay, somewhere between 5 and 9.
Yeah,
So we'll say a happy 7.
there's been some times.
So and then the Force Awakens is 25 years after this. So
About.
And then because when they're talking about the crime syndicates in the Force Awakens, there's no Hutts, there's no Pikes, there's no Crimson Dawn. It's Kanji Club. It's Guavian Death Gang, which Guavian Death Gang replaced Crimson Dawn. The Pikes and the Hutts were taken over by Kanji Club and the Red Key Raiders. Black Sun was in there, but they're no longer in effect. So it's not that long where I think we're going to see it at least by the end of Boba Fett. I think all of the crime families will probably be gone. It might take 2 seasons to do that. But I think that's the main goal, is that there's not going to be really any more large 5 family yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. I lost my thought.
Absolutely.
No more mafia.
I got you, DJ.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no more mafia.
Yeah. No more high profile gangs. It's going to be more lower key than what it is. So there's no telling where they're going to go with this. We just know that they're on a short borrowed time as it is.
Yeah. And it's probably Jabba's destruction that did all that. I mean, it seems like Jabba was like the main anchor hold for the Hutts. I mean, it just seems that way.
Yeah. So we have the probably, the most Boba Fett scene in the whole thing, like our traditional old school Boba Fett running down the Nikto biker gang. And I love the scene. I love that, you can just see a dot out there in the distance, and it's just, bearing down on them. And it's like, if you wondered if Boba Fett was still capable of being brutal, yes, absolutely, 100%.
Oh yeah. I mean, just seeing him gun down that biker gang, man, it was nice. Like,
it was great.
I was so sad when the Tuscans died. Like, I was heartbroken. I'm like, they're 2 weeks before the Tuscans died. I didn't even care about Tuscan Raiders. Who cares? They're sand people. No one likes them. And then in 2 episodes, I became like the biggest Tuscan Raider fanboy that you would ever believe. And then Jon Favreau kills them. Thank you, John. And broke my heart. Just to see those bikers get what they deserve, that was good enough for me.
Yeah. Are we going to completely skip over the part where Boba kills the Sarlacc? Well, Fennec kills the Sarlacc.
I definitely want to know what y'all thought about that scene. One, the curiousness. I mean, clearly he was so out of it when he crawled out of the Sarlacc that he doesn't really remember it.
Of course.
He thinks his armor's still in there. So, but what did y'all think about that scene?
Oh, it's my favorite noise in all of Star Wars.
It's a good noise.
My first watch, I saw that. Thank God I was outside on the deck. I screamed and then I rewound it and watched it again. I loved it.
I was convinced that the Sarlacc had already been dead. I thought Boba had killed it, just lit it on fire from the inside, and it was done. But no,
I think that was the impression. I mean, I'm not sure Boba didn't think it was dead as well.
Yeah,
because when we saw it in the first episode, we didn't know if they had just gone back to a pre-special edition version of the pit because we didn't see the beak.
Right.
But, the beak, I mean, as far as, talking about the way things have looked in this show, like the beak looks terrible in the prequels. It looks like the plant from Little Shop of Horrors, but it actually looks, intimidating in this. It's sort of like in The Mandalorian, they did a really good job with the super battle droids with the way, I mean, they look cartoonish in the prequels, but in The Mandalorian, that thing looks terrifying.
Yeah, it really does.
And so you can really see where the digital visual effects have come a really long ways since the prequels came out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I believe it was a comic that that covered that, and it was somebody else that had destroyed the Sarlacc, thinking that Boba was still inside, and I can't remember. It's like Nut from Nut or something like it, KNUT, and that was a comic, and at the time, who could tell whether or not comics were their own thing, or if this was something that was supposed to be taken as canon.
Right.
I loved it. Like Kelly did. I watched it on my phone first.
Me too.
Then when I got home, I had to put it on the surround sound just to hear the seismic charge.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is one of my top favorite. It's not my TIE Fighter Screaming By is my favorite, but the seismic charge is definitely one of my favorite sounds.
Oh, it's amazing. And setting it off underground and actually seeing the whole everything, even the barge on the hill shifts.
Yes.
It was just a really, really cool moment.
Tendrils going here and there.
I love when the ship pulls back and the tentacles are falling off.
Yes. It was so cool.
Yeah, no, everything about that scene looks really, really cool.
Yeah.
They did a really great job with it.
The shot from down inside the pit, watching the ship move over the hole was really cool.
That was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people think like, oh, it's just filler content. Why do we have to see this? But I wanted to see this, so I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I mean, you could argue that it's a waste of time to go back to the Sarlacc pit, that he should have just remembered that his armor wasn't there. And, but at the same time, it's still interesting storytelling because now you've got set up this whole thing where he has to figure out where it is. And I don't know if we're ever going to see that part of the story.
Yeah.
But, it just adds, it just broadens the story.
Yeah, because now we know that he didn't know that the Jawas stole his armor. We don't. Up till now, maybe he didn't. Like, he might have been out of it, but he may have been aware enough to be like, "Oh, there's creepy little dudes over me taking my armor," But now we definitely know that he goes back to Sarlacc pit, and now he's on the search for his armor, and he has less knowledge than we do about where it's at.
Right.
Yep.
So it's really like three things left I want to cover before we wrap up. The first is Black Chrysanthemum at the Sanctuary.
Oh yeah.
And we already talked about how good the character looks.
Yes.
I love that he's just sitting there getting drunk and fuming about Trandoshans.
Yeah, I mean, you could just like hear what he's thinking from the way he's like slurping his grog or whatever he's drinking, and like just
gotta be spotched.
yeah. Oh my gosh, and like getting angrier and angrier, and like
right. And I love the way they show it. I mean, they actually the dolly zoom that they used. I mean, that's straight out of Alfred Hitchcock, and it was what he always used to show, stress or building frustration was that dolly zoom. And that's what they did. And I mean, he's just getting more pissed off with every drink.
Oh,
and
I loved it.
And you can see it. I mean, you can see it on his face, and just that level of effects is crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
it was
About to be some
great.
furniture moving up in here. Yeah.
I mean, and it took me all the way back to the original, like the original A New Hope, where Han is like, when they were playing, what was it? Like wizard chess or whatever. Whatever they were playing.
I think that was Sorcerer's Stone.
But who was it? 3PO? Like, did you ever play an angry Wookiee and you let him win, and he doesn't tear your arm off or something if he loses or something like that, and
I'm pretty sure that game is Dejaric, I believe is the game.
Yeah, I think
yes.
I totally blanked on that one.
That's a fair one to blank on. But yeah, no, I mean, it's great. I mean, because, Trandoshans are known for hunting Wookiees. We even see one has already delivered a Wookiee pelt to Boba Fett, as tribute. So I love the scene. I mean, what did y'all think about the scene overall? I think that the Sanctuary is a really interesting place, which is great because it's kind of in keeping with cantinas and Star Wars in general. Is they're just interesting places.
Mm-hmm.
It just it was an amazing scene, and then when Boba comes in and Jennifer Beals, I can't remember the character name.
Garza Fwip.
Yeah,
Madam Garza Fwip.
Yeah, so and she, she's like trying to talk him down, and then the arm comes off, and she just kind of looks and just like, all right.
She's like, and Boba's like, you have to try.
It was that was absolutely, it was amazing. They didn't show it. There was no blood either on the arm, which I thought was amazing. At first, I thought they were going to treat it like the arm in A New Hope and the cantina scene, and there's going to be blood on the floor and everything. Yeah. I wish they would have done that, but we didn't get that.
Disney,
just to like a flashback where it's not even the right arm; it's just that scene. You just see the same arm sitting there, just for a gag. Maybe we'll get it on a gag reel or something. That'd be amazing. But it was the scene was handled beautifully. You could definitely sense that tension as it builds, and you think that you finally get him calmed down and everything's going to be all right, and then pop goes the arm. And it was amazing.
Man, I think DJ said it best. I mean, that tension, him beating the crap out of those Trandoshans was
I'm not sure the one got his arm ripped off didn't come out of that better than some of his compatriots.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Trandoshans regrow limbs, I'm pretty sure. So
so no harm, no foul there. But doggone, like he's bashing the heads into these other guys.
Yeah,
and
knuckle duster.
Classy. Yeah, and that's another thing. That knuckle buster, that seems to be a mod too. I believe that Black Chrysanthemum is in the newer Dr. Afra comics. So, I mean, that's a mod, I believe, is those knuckle dusters.
Well, he has those. I think those are extra. I think in that comic, that he had metal injected into his knuckles.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
So-
that might be extra. I might be wrong on that. But as classy as the sanctuary is, this doesn't seem to be an odd occurrence. So that's pretty cool. Like it really gives that pomp and circumstance kind of feel, you know, like you go into sanctuary, everyone's pretty cool. They're playing here, doing there, there's music. And then this Wookiee just destroys all these Trandoshans and everyone doesn't bat an eye. And at the end, it's like hit it, Max, and then Max Rebo just starts playing again, and everything's back to normal. Like, my favorite part of the episode.
Spawning off of that thought.
One day we're gonna have to find out how Max made it off the barge, though, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like that's the new spinoff show.
Well, that's what I've been saying for a while now. Like Disney Plus, where's our Max Rebo show? Like he's at least alive until the Christmas special. I don't know if you've seen the Lego Holiday special. He's playing it at private parties in the Lego Christmas special. We can do it Blues Brothers style and get the band back together. That's right. Well, the rest of the band's dead because in the Lego Star Wars, they literally say something in gibberish or alien, whatever, and he goes, "Oh, my condolences," about the rest of his band. So the rest of the band's dead in 30 years. It's sad. It's a sad story.
Max has opened up a hatch and just thrown his piano out into the dunes, and he does a nosedive after it. Yeah, I'm out of here.
That's the scene we need to see next.
Can I just ask, Garza Flip? She was so eloquent with talking Chrysanthemum down, you know, like beefing him up, and you used to be the noble gladiator and this and that, touching his arm. Do we think she's just a proprietary owner of this place, or do you think she's involved in, she's got a boss and she has a ring?
I think that she is wielding a fair amount of power, maybe beyond the sanctuary. Yeah. I personally think that she's employed directly by Crimson Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too.
That's a good
She's employed by somebody. She's too good.
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Well, and the way she acts is like she is so good at what she does, and she comes in at these points and she seems to be really good at what she does. It really seems like she knows what she's doing. It would be a waste of a character for her just to be the owner of the sanctuary.
Yes.
Yeah. Even if she's not working for someone else, she has to play a bigger role in this by the time it's over. They've set her the character, they've done too much to set the character up for her to just be nobody.
I think so too.
If she got her own show, Ro wouldn't be able to contain himself.
The Book of Garza Whip. Find something wrong with that one, Ro.
Stick it to the man.
You just have it on mute.
All right, so let's talk about the last big scene. We're getting the families together, right?
Yes.
What did y'all think about the scene? I mean, I think they did a great job setting it up. I think that it's the most. I mean, we always kind of thought this was going to be a sort of Godfather-esque show, and this was by far the most Godfather scene that we've had so far.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, definitely. It's all the players. Well, I won't say all the players, but most of the players are there in one room, and it's you come out of this. Oh, jeez.
Ron knows I
love him. Whoops.
But it's just it almost reminds me of like a A-Team type situation where you have all these players in place, and I'm just ready, for Hannibal to come out with a cigar and say, "I love it when a plan comes together," and and then they go to battle with this. But I still think there's another piece or two that we'll get before the end that will turn the tide. But yeah, it was an amazing scene. I loved, and you could see it. everyone that he's positively influenced and is kind of brought under his wing are there, and it's no, um, I'm trying to think of the best way that I'm trying to describe it. He did it his way. He didn't do it by force. He didn't do it.
Yes.
He's done it exactly the way that he said he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's getting to see, and we're getting to see the fruits of his labors. And we have all these people that are willing to do battle with him. And so let's do battle.
Yeah.
He didn't even have to threaten him, like little Rancor was hungry. He slipped him, bone, and that was so cool.
Yeah, dining on top of the Rancor pen is
brilliant.
I mean, that's a move, right?
Yeah, he knew what was going to happen. He knew what was going to happen. Definitely. But I think we find out some good information in this scene. We find out one, that Boba Fett has about as much power as Bib Fortuna did, but that's not even in comparison to what Jabba had, because they were captains under Jabba. After Jabba dies, it really seems like they took control of those territories, right? And Bib Fortuna was kind of like a figurehead. He really had no power. Because they even say, like, what keeps us from killing you and someone else taking your spot? It doesn't matter to us. So we find that out, that he doesn't have the pull that Jabba did. And then second off, we find out that this is what I think. This is more of a theory, but I think someone's going to betray him. Like, they have that whole spiel about, look, I'll fight the Pikes. It's good for all of us. You don't have to help me. Just don't betray me. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, we won't betray you.
Yeah.
Really? Like, come on. Someone's going to do it. Someone's going to do it. That Trandoshan.
Yeah, definitely. And he even, and Fennec even asked, so do you really believe him? And he's like, no.
Yeah. They're going to do what's good for them.
Yeah.
It's definitely shaping up to be an epic fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so we go from there. I mean, first of all, do you think the other families, the other Mos Espa families, are going to stay out of it like they promised?
No. I think most of them, some will join, some will stay out, and there'll be at least one knucklehead that tries to play both sides and gets caught in the middle.
Yeah.
I think DJ's right.
I'm curious to see how that's going to go down. Because it didn't go quite the way when he asked them to stay out of it. It's not the way I thought it was going. I thought it was going to be, basically, well, if you're not going to join me, then you're going to have to deal with me. And,
well, I will say that this kind of goes along with like another big theme in this show, and that is ruling with respect. You talked about earlier, no one gets real far without a tribe. Well, this is the other thing, is ruling with respect. I'm not going to tell them they have to, or I'm going to kill them like Jabba would.
Yeah.
One day he hopes to bring all of these organizations together, all these people together under the mantle of respect instead of fear.
Yeah.
I think that's a big theme in this show.
Oh, yes. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right, he says it all the time.
Right. He says that, and he says, I am Boba Fett.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that. Well, he has to say that because nobody else on Tatooine has a name. Because I'm telling you, there's like the Hutt twins don't have a name. Like the Rancor doesn't have a name. Danny Trejo doesn't have a name. Like, who are these people?
Right.
The Mighty Morphin Power Kids, none of them have names. It's nuts.
well, the girl does. I can't remember what that name is, but she has a name, but I don't remember what that is.
So let's just go ahead and get to it here. We've got the big scene at the end. This was, I mean, there's not much they could have done to grab your attention more than the Mandalorian theme to play at the end of this.
Oh, so good.
So what do you think that means? Are we just getting Din? Are we getting all of the Mandalorians? Or, are we getting...
I know.
Like, how much are we getting here?
I don't know.
So, I'm of the opinion, and what kind of bothers me about this scene is, like, I feel like that Boba Fett and Din Djarin are kind of bros now. You know, they have this, they're both Mandalorian. They have cool armor together. Like they helped each other out. So I didn't see the point of being like, we have to hire muscle and brawn and brains and all that, and then have the music play like it's going to be Din Djarin. I think Bo-Katan is going to be the one who wants the money. Like I really think she's not doing
right. I think Din's coming because Din's mission is different.
Right.
But yeah, to hire the rest of the Mandalorian crew. And actually, I think where this is going, I think we're going to get a good bit of whatever forces Bo-Katan is wielding. I still think that where the Mandalorian is heading after season 2, and I think it's where it was always heading, is the reclamation of Mandalore.
Yes.
That we're going back to Mandalore, where Mandalore is going to rise to prominence again.
Because let's remember, like, Din Djarin has the Darksaber. So is it just going to be him, or is he going to bring all of Mandalore with him? You know, like, so many possibilities.
So where I hope this is going, because as of right now, what we know about Boba Fett, what he said in The Mandalorian, he doesn't care, or at least at that point, didn't care anything about about Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He felt no loyalty to it, talked about the planet just being turned to glass. Like, he's not interested.
Mm-hmm.
But now what I'm hoping to see here is they're going to come help him, that they're going to bring these forces. They're going to help him with his issue. And then when it's time to go reclaim Mandalore from whoever's actually in control, that we're going to see Boba Fett and whatever power he's wielding by that point come to their aid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian, or this is kind of like the Mandoverse now, because it kind of started with the Mandalorian, is like the focal point. Like back in the Arrowverse, right? DC stuff. It's kind of all focused around Arrow until the Arrow ends. But I could see that, like, all the people that the Mandalorians like been in contact with, the major players will come and help in that final hour to help Mandalore. I think that's going to be cool. But I really think that Bo-Katan's going to use the money. Like, Boba Fett's going to have to pay Bo-Katan to come help him out, and she's going to use that kind of to help get the war effort up for Mandalore.
Yeah, no, I for sure think that's where that's going.
That's what
As far as what Joker's saying here about Boba not being a Mandalorian, that is all very hazy in canon. At one time he was not a Mandalorian, but he's always been from Conquered Dawn, which is a Mandalorian controlled planet. So, I don't know what
even his
there's also
code.
Mandalorians that you're not a Mandalorian if you didn't take the creed, right? So there's multiple definitions of what a Mandalorian is at this point.
Well, his chain code in Mandalorian season 2, that I think is the final episode, his chain code said he's a Mandalorian. So, like, I'm with you.
It was a good enough answer for Din to not take, not try to keep the armor. So
that's true.
Yeah.
So, am I the only one that did not like the theme to be played? I didn't like it.
You're all alone, DJ.
Well, I mean,
I love you, DJ.
You have a show that's about Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
You're halfway through the show, and you played the theme of another highly popular show. So now this show is now going to become Mandalorian season 2.5.
Or you can just say
I think
for the mid-season finale. But
if you would have left it off, and it would have been more of a shock to see, Din come in to save the day, or another character from the show come in, I think would have had more impact if you have left that theme off. Because now that whole theme is going to overshadow this show. And at least in my opinion, anyway.
It's always the danger. It was the danger with bringing Ahsoka into the Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker. It's always the danger. It was what the sequel struggled with more than anything. It's like, how do you come out of the shadow of these bigger players? And it's always a risk. But I like when they played that theme. I mean, I came up off the couch, like.
Yes.
Yeah, I did too.
Yes, I needed that. I think everybody needed that.
So
I didn't need that. I loved
music.
the whole thing, but a lot of people did not like the whole thing, so a lot of people needed that.
Yeah.
I did. And I got excited there for a second, but then I was thinking, it was like, well, how, it's like, I think this is going to do more hurt than it is good. I really think that because of the reaction that I gave it, really trumps anything else in the show up to this point.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to come to DJ's aid here. I know that he is very much alone and he needs some help. But I got to get what you're saying, because I think The Mandalorian did Luke Skywalker well. You had no idea Luke Skywalker was coming, and then he pops in for the season finale and he's gone. Right. Like, I don't know if he's going to show up again. That's up in the air. I hope he doesn't, because that will overshadow The Mandalorian, period. But with this, we haven't even seen The Mandalorian yet. We haven't seen Din Djarin. So you play the theme, and now everyone's going to be like, is he going to be in this episode? No. Is he going to be in this episode? No. And I was excited when I heard the music, and I still think it's good, but I see where you're coming from. I really do. Because The Mandalorian, people think that is the gold standard at this point. And I agree. I think The Mandalorian is a great thing to measure all these shows up to, but it has 2 seasons. It has a lot more cutability factor. I mean, you got Baby Yoda Grogu. I mean, so I think you could be right on this.
I do think in an interconnected universe, I do think that this is going to serve, because right now we have no idea where Din Djarin goes from Grogu leaving, right? Like, that show has been a 2 lead show, with one of them being a puppet, but still. And, he's gone. Grogu's gone. Who is Din Djarin now? And so I do think that I think that this is going to serve to set up whatever Mandalorian season 3 is. Yeah. So I do think that looking at it as all one thing, I think that it's important. I think that it's going to wind up being important. I do want to point out, let's see, somebody said it back here. Also not forget that Din does have people on Tatooine as well.
That's right.
And Cobb Vanth is one that I would absolutely love to show back up.
He's a cool character. I like Cobb Vanth a lot.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. There is one thing of this series that I still can't wrap my brain around. And everybody, the mayor, I can't remember his name, like with the whooshy head. Yes, thank you. Yeah. He keeps saying, he said something like, my boss is not who you think, or, the people responsible is not what you think. And we all assume that it's the Pikes, but what if it's not the Pikes, and what if it's not Crimson Dawn, because that's, our other guess. What if it's like Thrawn or something, like, my mind is going like a million miles a minute over that. And it's like episode 4, and it's still haunting me.
Right. I mean, they kind of left us hanging with that Ahsoka episode.
Yeah.
As far as, is Thrawn like, so he's already back. So we've still at some point got to fill in the story of how he's back.
Right.
Yeah.
As we still don't know what the story with Ezra Bridger is.
Right.
So we've still got questions as far as what Thrawn's grasp on the galaxy are.
Yeah.
But I do think that's very much an Ahsoka specific thing. I don't know. I
don't think I was thinking.
I really do.
That's what I was thinking, but what if that's what they want us to be thinking?
That's true too. I mean, I'm expecting about anything, but I will say this is kind of my one gripe, and it kind of ties in good here about this show so far. And that's every time we get a villain that seems threatening, the next episode they're gone. I mean, we get the Hutts and Black Chrysanthemum in one episode. The next episode, it's like, we're all friends now. See ya. And then now the Pikes are the really big bad guys. And I don't think that Boba Fett should be scared of the Pikes in that way. Because, I mean, he's already got a force that could take on just the Pikes that are there.
Right.
So there has to be something big to take on Boba Fett and his group of folks, the Mandalorian and their folks, because that's where it seems that it's coming. I mean, the Mando's coming. Like, he's going to have this big army, and there has to be something equally as big or even bigger that they have to overcome. You know, I don't think it's just the Pikes. It has to be something really big.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see how they set all that up. And I think the Hutts, I don't think they had them in there for no reason. I think the Hutts are.
They'll be back.
I think the Hutts are just more shady. That they're like, we're going to sit this fight out and we'll come in and clean up the mess.
Yeah,
it's probably more their play.
Yeah,
right. So maybe a season 2 villain, or they're steeped in with the Pikes or something like that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And Cad Bane. We just have to throw another name out there. Cad Bane. He's out there somewhere.
I hope he goes against Boba and Fennec Shan. We need a Fennec Shan Cad Bane rematch.
Oh yes. So many possibilities.
Yeah. I think all the bounty hunters are on the table at this point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Throw them all in there. Let's have a big Royal Rumble in the final episode.
I wouldn't be surprised that maybe Luke and Boba may be on like a
right?
You're on the same team. Maybe Han Solo show up. He's like, "Hey, Han, Boba's turned a new leaf," and Han Solo shows up with Chewie. I mean, who knows? I mean,
I've been thinking that forever. Because didn't they said at the beginning, like way before this even started, that Han Solo like was on set for like one day. So, you know, we've got to see him. Come on.
Yeah, I'd be a little shocked if we get anything like that in this show. But, you know, in the interest of creating and you know, an interwoven universe, I mean, there are a lot of people from the original trilogy that are on the table.
Yes.
And with Filoni in charge, I wouldn't take anyone off the table until he does it himself. Because
exactly.
You know, there's nobody that really weaves that kind of stuff together in the Star Wars universe like Dave does.
That's right.
Right.
But I am very excited to see, with 3 episodes left, I think we're over the hump. I think we're really getting down to business for these next 3 episodes. And I can't wait to see where it's going. Like I said, overall, I'm really enjoying the story that's being told.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, it's the possibilities are unlimited.
Right.
I really can't. I hate to venture the guess that this next episode is really going to be show us a lot, but you never know. Especially with Filoni, they said you're going to get the things you don't expect in every episode. And so far, there's been deep cuts. There's been deleted scene, reveals from like A New Hope that no one would have ever thought that would have been possible. And so you never know what you're going to get, and that's a good thing, and keeps us in this hobby that we have here is we can guess and speculate till the cows come home, and
that's right.
And then after we're all wrong with all of our guesses, right, back to the drawing table. Here we go again.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't think that the series is flawless, but I'm really, there's a lot I really appreciate as a Star Wars fan about this. And I mean, even down to just Dave Filoni's constant reverence for Ralph McQuarrie's art. That just keeps showing up. It shows up through everything that Filoni does.
Yeah.
All right. But I think that's got us about to the end. Does anybody have any final thoughts on either episode 4 of the Book of Boba Fett or what we'll see next week?
3 days.
Just keep it coming. Keep it coming. I want all of the Boba Fetts. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I'm loving it too. It's had its points where it's here and it's there. There's some things I don't quite like, but I mean that's everything, right? And I think some fans kind of harp on the small things that are bad about it. But I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be worse. We could be nitpicking space underwear or zippers or something.
Garza Flip was not wearing a bra, okay?
Just saying. I mean, there
what
are
kind of aftershave does Han Solo use? I mean, yeah. Who knows? I mean,
well, it's like I always go back to with George. Anytime someone says George Lucas said, George Lucas says a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then a year later, he will say the exact opposite, and nobody flinches.
Mm-hmm.
It's just George Lucas said. And it's like George kind of steps on his own words all the time. So
and then it didn't even matter. He didn't own it anymore. I mean, it's all Disney realm
well,
now.
but like the silly stuff with like zippers.
Oh,
it's like, oh, George said no zippers in Star Wars. And it's like, and then George put zippers in Star Wars. Like Luke definitely zips up his flight suit. Like,
well, I think Boss zipped up the back of his entire person. Like, I mean, like,
right? But I mean, we literally see a scene where Luke zips his suit, and it's like,
that's true.
Yeah,
it's like the zipper's not visible, but it's definitely a zipper.
Yeah, that's right.
So, anyway, any more final thoughts?
No.
Good.
This has been
All right.
fun.
Keep on giving it
yeah,
to me.
thanks for coming. Thanks everybody in the chat for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Yeah. Like I said, big thanks to everybody in the chat. And let's go around the room here and let everybody tell where to find your podcast and find you online. So I'll start with you, DJ.
All right. I am co-host of Rogue One Radio podcast. We do it live every Tuesday. I believe, let's see, try to get the time zones right. We do it from 7 Central. It's me and Steve Long and Nicole. And we have a lot of fun.
Awesome. Blake, where can people find you?
So I am a co-host on Dork Wars, the podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Dork Wars Podcast. We even have a link tree where you can find like everywhere, all our socials, whatever mediums we're on, everything. Just type in Dork Wars link tree on Google. That's way simpler than trying to type in the URL. I'm just going to tell you now. But we have a lot of fun. I mean, there's 5 of us on our podcast, so it gets a little crazy. We release every week, most of the time. And we're actually going to try to do some more of this live stuff that we're doing here now. So we're actually trying to ramp up on that on our YouTube channel and all.
Awesome.
So check it out.
All right. And Kelly.
I run the social medias for Dave and Jason from the Sidebar Cantina. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Discord, and let's see. And we have some Spotify's too. Music, playlists, podcasts, you name it.
Awesome. Well, you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at crew_podcast at CRU_podcast. You can drop us a line at Coruscant Radio Underground at gmail.com. And as always, check out our podcast as well as the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network at red5network.com or at Red 5 Network on Twitter. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.